Welcome, everyone. It's Brand Crafted Night School. You and Improve, sponsored by Serendipity Labs. And you thought, just like your kids, you had it easy. You were out of school for the year. Oh, nay, nay. Brand Crafted Night School happens at least once a quarter where we find something we could all get better at, and we bring in the experts so we can ask them questions and learn from them. Tonight, we have an amazing lineup, and we're going to do the best that we can to recreate the night school in-person experience here in the virtual setting. Normally, we're at Serendipity Labs, the beautiful new home of the Brand Crafted Social Club. But right now, well, you can't really go there because of the situation that we're in, so we're recreating it here online. Our lineup tonight is just awesome. Dave Marlow from Finding Your Purpose is going to help us find our purpose. Ariel Kopac is going to help us improve our business mindset. Taren Sartler, the Time Lord, she's going to help us with time management and productivity. Jayme Radomski, digital organization. She's a professional organizer, but specifically tonight, she's going to talk about the hot mess that your desktop is and where all your files should be and how you keep them all straight. And Allison Orlovsky, we love her. She is a relationship coach, but tonight we're not talking about your personal relationships. We're talking about your professional relationships, and she's going to do a great job with that. I'm thinking the show is going to be maybe an hour or so, so refill your beverage, get yourself comfortable, and let's get going. Me, I'm Pat Miller. I'm the Idea Coach, and I help driven small business owners increase their sales and improve their marketing through coaching, classes, and communities just like this one. So it's a real pleasure to have you here tonight so we can get to know each other better and we can learn from one another. I'll ask a bunch of questions, as many smart things as I can. And if you have a question during the thing tonight, that's the beauty of Zoom. When we have our panelists here in the chat, raise your hand or say, I have a question, and we will work you in so we can get the most that we can out of each one of our speakers. But before we go on, we want to bring on our sponsor for tonight and our home base, Dave Noel from Serendipity Labs. So David, what do you got and how are things at the labs? Tell us what's going on.
Hey, thanks, Pat. Good to see everybody. I looked through everybody that's on, and right before I got on, it made me a bit nervous seeing everybody. But great to see you all. We at Serendipity Labs, we are still open. We're a certified mail receiving agency, so we're able to stay open. Most of our members are choosing not to come in, but and we are unstaffed right now, but we do have cleaning crews coming in Monday through Friday in the evening to clean up the place and sanitize. We, as Pat said, are grateful to host night school. We hosted when Third Eye Local was here the last time. So yeah, thanks for having me on, Pat. We're in the Mayfair collection. We opened this year, and we sell private offices, co-working memberships, dedicated desks, and we have meetings and events here when all goes well. So, I encourage you all to stop by. A lot of you I see on the Zoom have been here before. Please come by when it's safe. And yeah, thanks so much for keeping us together, Pat.
Absolutely. Emily Gilders also works with you. She helps fill the offices, and she can't be here tonight, but she's someone that almost everyone on the call knows. And thanks to David and Serendipity Labs, they've given me a big stack of free one-day co-working spaces. So if you want to go over there and test it out and we can all get back to normal, which is going to feel so good to like be out of my basement, send me an email or drop something in the chat and we'll make sure that we hook you up with one of those free days of co-working so you can go over there and see the beautiful space. So David, we'll see you soon. Thanks for hopping on and thanks for being a sponsor of tonight's show. So moving on, where are we? Everything is disrupted, as we all know that. You've heard disruption again and again, and you've heard, as Lisa from Rebel Girl said in one of our breakout rooms, you've heard the word pivot so many times, like, okay, we get it, we got to pivot. But with everything disrupted and your business upside down, some people freaked out. And the reason why they freaked out is that now they were left with just themselves. They didn't have their structure that they normally had. They didn't have their networking meetings to fill their times. They didn't have regular client calls they had to go on. They were left with themselves, and they were left with their own personal habits, and they were left with the way they think about their business. And for some, that was pretty scary. So tonight's show is about everything that's happening up here. How are you doing managing yourself as you try to manage your business? That's why we have the experts on to talk about what we're going to talk about. So our first guest tonight, he really interests me. He interests me because he talks about something that so few people talk about. Dave Marlow from Vluru, which I think I'm saying that right, he helps you find your purpose and really figure out why you're doing what you're doing. And he talks about Ikigai, which I had never heard of. So Dave, welcome. Tell us about Ikigai and what is that and what does it do for you?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with just saying thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. And yes, you did say it correctly. It only took like 3 hours of coaching before the session. No, not really. Yeah. So you and I were talking the other day, and I think it's a good place to start. My career, which consisted of some ranging from an engineering role to an executive at 3 Fortune 500 companies, did not ending up the way I had planned. Events and circumstances instead really gave me an unexpected opportunity to discover a life and a purpose that I didn't even realize could exist, and allow me to write a far better ending for my story, or at least the next chapter. And the way that got going was Ikigai. About 3 years ago, could kind of see that in corporations in general, but especially the one that I was working for, we're just taking a different path, and needed to really own my own career, and started working on LinkedIn and just sharing what was in my heart. And I asked some folks, what are you seeing when you read my stuff? And one friend said, hey, you should look into Ikigai. I'm like, okay, tell me about it. He goes, no, you should just look into it. And kind of left it to me. But it's really about, and it's just one aspect of understanding what are you passionate about? What are you interested in? What are your values? What are the things that you're good at? What does the world need? And then what will people value or pay for? And Ikigai is that convergence of all of those things. And that's you living and working and breathing in your sweet spot, bringing all of those things together. And so looking into that and then finding my own is what really prompted me to take full advantage of that opportunity.
So if you had to describe that sweet spot for you, you help other people find it. Is that your
Right.
particular sweet spot, or is it the investigation of helping people find their sweet spot? What is it for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, because your purpose and your Ikigai is really a deep thing, and there's a lot of manifestations of it. For me, I'm all about encouraging, empowering, and enabling people to be all they were meant to be in their lives and their businesses, and that's my Ikigai. The way I'm manifesting it right now is I'm helping people find their purpose and their Ikigai. But there's a lot of ways to do that.
So let's talk about that. If someone's listening and they're like, I'm close, but I'm not really in tune. How do you help someone find their center so they stop doing something that doesn't speak to them and they spend every minute of every day just doing that thing that they're on the planet to do?
Right. And let's talk about what that day looks like. Like, what's a day like that? And that part of it is just even getting people to understand and see the need for it, because the world, or sometimes even our well-meaning family and friends, they kind of pile a lot of stuff on us as to what's the right thing to do or what we ought to be doing. And so what I work with is helping people, first of all, realize they need that. And then second, I'll ask all of you to just imagine a day where you cannot wait to wake up in the morning, and your entire day is filled doing things that you care about, things that you're good at, making the world or your world a better place that people value. Then imagine doing that every day, day after day. And that's what living out your Ikigai is really all about. And so it's finding those things and doing that. So for me, for example, I can go back and look at all of my career and see those moments. It wasn't the whole purpose, but the moments where I felt that kind of, maybe just an hour even, and talking through that and working through how to understand what were those key indicators and when were you really feeling that level of flow and energy, and pulling all of that together to get that deeper understanding.
So that sounds great. Give it to me. How do I do it? Like, what would you do if I said, hey, I am a marketing guy at a radio station and I kind of like part of my job and I don't like another part of my job. If I was your client, what is the process? And I don't want you to divulge a secret or something here, but kind of in general, is it coaching? Is it a test? How do you help someone find that essence of being?
Yes. Sometimes it's even just as simple as talking about, I would ask you all, and I'll just ask you, especially since you were in radio, and I know that career.
Yeah.
What did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream job?
Well, being on the air was fun.
Yeah.
I liked it until being on the air was the same thing every day.
Right.
And that's the part that frustrated me. It wasn't different every day. As much as it sounds like it would be, it wasn't. And that really frustrated me in the long term.
Right. And part of it is even just finding out those kinds of things. I shared with someone the other day, I love coffee. And I drink a lot of coffee and I talk about coffee a lot. And so people assume, oh, you should open a coffee shop. That's my passion is drinking coffee, not making it for other people or owning a shop. And so my passion, though, would be helping that shop owner figure out how to incorporate their passion into it. So separate the manifestation, the job, because, especially with the pandemic, we are not going to be the same jobs we were before. A lot of jobs are going to change. A lot of businesses are going to change. It's understanding that root. So I would ask you, when you were on the radio, what got you energized? What was the fun part of that job for you?
Oh, the best part of the job was coming up with the ideas. I had to find a way to say something in 15 seconds because I only had 15 seconds to say it. So finding a way to connect with someone in 15 seconds, that challenge to solve the problem 50 times inside one show, that was the only thing I really loved about it. That was the best part.
Oh, that's very interesting, given what you do now.
It led to it. So that goes to my next question. I think everyone on the call, and even Jennifer in the chat, is mentioning the parts of her job that she loves, the parts of her job that she hates. And there were parts of the radio job that I lived for. And then there was all the other stuff. If I'm hearing you correctly, is Ikigai to give you the courage to stop doing the things or delegate the things that don't energize you, or try and fulfill yourself with what you love, basically run towards your strengths and lose everything else?
Right. So the stronger understanding you have of what that Ikigai is, the more you can do just that. The more you can focus on those things that add that value to you, the more you can say no to things. So I'll just say again, my career ended. It didn't end because I could have stayed and taken on another job. None of that job had anything to do with my Ikigai. It was a managerial job and so forth. And so it wasn't of interest to me. But it was because I had that understanding of my Ikigai that I could then say no to that. Because the smart thing would have been to say yes and keep getting paid and stay gainfully employed, right? So yeah, absolutely. The stronger the understanding you have of that, the better. The other is, keep in mind, there's the passion part of it. There's also the skills part of it. Do you have the skills to do and manifest what you want? Let's say, for example, you said you practiced 15 seconds of getting an idea together.
Right.
I'm sure there's a lot more that you've had to develop over the years. And let's say we were having that conversation, I would start asking you and diving into deeper, what are those skills that you're going to need to really be able to manifest that Ikigai in a full way and make a living at it? I mean, we could all name, I think I saw a pop-up, somebody wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. And we could all name a lot of things. I wanted to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
When I break down what being an astronaut meant to me and understanding that, exploring, doing new things, doing something for people, right? All of those things match up with what I'm doing now. And so conversations around that and getting through, again, the clutter, because we've all been told a lot of things in our life, intentionally and unintentionally, by circumstances, by failure, by relatives, and we've got to get that clutter out. So part of my job is to provide that voice. I actually have somebody even who's helped me over time. I have my friends that have helped me, even though I'm skilled at that. When you're trying to do it for yourself, it's often very hard.
Yeah. Talking with Dave Marlow from Vluru, who helps you find your purpose. What does it feel like when it's right? You mentioned the word flow before. Is that where it just doesn't feel like work and you're just happy? I mean, can you talk about that? Because if you have a cluster of responsibilities you are worrying about every day, but there's one thing that just you look forward to, is that how we find which one of these skills or actions is what we should be doing?
Right. And again, I'd separate the manifestation from the ikigai. So there's a lot of ways that you can do your job. I could point back to when I was an engineer. There were elements of what I was doing that were manifesting, but it was a smaller percentage than what I'm doing now. So really, the conversation is around what are those things, and getting that deeper understanding of your purpose, of the skill development, and then linking it. Then it's linking it to what people would value.
Yeah.
So especially, and I know in our breakouts, most of the folks here were small business owners. Understanding how you can meet that market need is a huge part of this conversation too. And that comes after we get those early understandings of your skills and what you enjoy.
So one of the questions in the chat is from Lisa. Is this relating to finding your why or maybe your Enneagram? Is that along the same lines as what you're talking about?
Yeah, the difference there is that's a little more tactical, and this is more about having this understanding enables you to go after that and manifest at a specific why.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the difference. The ikigai means life purpose, which is a much deeper concept than just, again, what I'm working on right now, or what's my next step, or what's my next career move, or what business am I going to open. And having that foundation is what really enables you to do those other things. Because as I was saying, the pandemic, a lot of jobs are just going to disappear. And I think a lot of jobs types are even going to disappear. And if you're too rooted in the job itself, or the business itself, or the product, then you'll lose out when that's gone. Having that deeper understanding is the key thing. And it's a lot of contemplative work, and it's like anything else. You're going to have to do the work, and the coach is going to help you with that. And so my job is to pick up on those key things, like what you said about the ideas, right? We would have a conversation, and you would share, and I would draw out those things that were clear indicators to me of what was really at the heart of your ikigai.
We only have a few minutes left with Dave, so if you have a question, drop it down inside the chat. One thing that you said when we talked before the show that really turned me on was like, this is interesting because you believe you can find this at any point in your life. This isn't something you're supposed to figure out when you're 14 and you can never do it again. Anyone at any time could get in touch with this ikigai. And that's kind of liberating to think that anyone can find this at any time. What are some of the stories maybe of helping folks that are maybe not later in life, but older than you might expect, that have found their purpose?
Yeah. So both sides of that, right? The younger or the older. Had a young man that I've mentored for a number of years that was in sales and doing very well, but had been on a high school baseball championship team and just loved baseball and thought he wanted to be a professional athlete. Turns out he loves coaching, mentoring, and teaching, and he has linked all of that to a sports business. And now he's actually, in fact, I need to connect him with Elsie. He needs to do a podcast. He's doing Facebook Live and some other things like that. And he has really become an expert and helped other people coach them through their sports collectibles, and become an authority on that. And there's no way he would have seen that manifestation, but it was digging into what was it about sports that you liked? What was it about being a baseball player? And it wasn't, I mean, he certainly enjoyed the games and things like that, but at the root, it was that he enjoyed being connected to it and helping other people enjoy it more and teaching them through that.
Question from Teresa. Can you describe what it's like to have a session with you? I mean, what do we do? How long would we work with you to find this or get closer to it?
Sure. So the initial session is just almost what you and I are doing, where we're just having a conversation to get to know one another and understand. There's a process in design thinking called ethnographic research and empathy interviewing, and I use a number of techniques in that allow you to go deeper. deeper with the questions, things that we wouldn't be able to do here right now. But and so that initial session really is just to understand, where are you at? What is it that you're looking to do? And are you stuck? Is this a pivot? Are you looking to discover this because you want to magnify what you're doing now? That kind of dialogue would be the initial one. And that would just be an exploration. And together we would identify what you would want to do.
And then is it ongoing coaching after we find it, where you're helping someone stay on task?
Yeah, then it's ongoing coaching.
Great. Last question from Liz. So when you discover your ikigai, does it stay at that core through the rest of your life, or might it change as time goes on?
That's a very interesting question. Excellent. The core of you doesn't change, just like the deeper parts of your personality, but the depth of understanding of it does. So I can tell you mine at 20 was what I am doing now, but my understanding of it could not have been the same. And then the manifestation of it couldn't be the same, because you're growing and learning, you're building skills, and your ability to live it out changes over time. So yes and no. How's that?
Yeah.
How's that for a cosmic answer? Yes and no.
Well, this is exactly what I hope to have. I figured we would start off night school with a very light conversation about why you're on the planet and what's your purpose, right? A nice, easy, warm up kind of talk. But this is exactly what I hope we would get. Thank you so much for your contributions. And please drop your contact information in the chat. So if you're interested, and I would imagine, and I guess this isn't a question, it's just an observation. Do you have people that almost don't want to know? Like, they know that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And if they found out what they're really supposed to be doing in their heart, that would almost be frustrating to them. Does that ever happen?
Oh my gosh, that you nailed it. They'll move along with some of the discovery stuff, and then when you get deep and you're getting close, it's like, oh no, not gonna do this, because they don't want to know. You're right. They'd rather stay the path. It's easier to stay where you're at now, but the opportunity to live out your purpose is there. So.
Wow, that's fantastic. Dave Marlow from Vluru, thank you so much for coming on. Please drop your information in the chat. And if anyone wants to get in touch with Dave, I know that he would love to talk with you about it. So thank you, Dave. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So we talked about why we're here. Like, most literally, why are we here? Unbelievable. The next part we're going to talk about is, okay, you are where you are. How can you be better at doing what you're doing? This mindset idea of running your own business. And I've always, every time, like, you're watching TV and like there's a dog barking on TV, and then your dog goes, like that. Like, they turn their head like that when they see another dog. Like, every time I see Ariel talk and she starts getting deep about the purpose and the mindset stuff, I just, like, she says interesting things. So I wanted her to come on the show. Ariel Kopac from Harness Your Hindrance Coaching. You help people with their mindset, but some people may misinterpret mindset, Ariel, for, well, I'm just going to believe that this thing will happen and someday it will come out to me. The universe will take care of me. That isn't how it really works, is it?
Not exactly. No. I must say really quickly, Pat, that when you said that you started to unmute me and then you mentioned a dog, I was like, where is this going?
It's just every time you say something, I'm like, yeah, right on. Okay, that's really smart.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So yeah.
No, it's not exactly how it works. Actually, when Pat and I had our first conversation, he asked me if I was the coach who said, just put it out there, believe it'll happen, and it'll happen. I said, not exactly. There is reason, though, for that. So I think oftentimes bits and pieces are communicated without the context. And when that happens, you miss the mark. That's oftentimes what's happening when people say to envision it, or when they reference The Secret without going into depth as to why. Just thinking that you want it to happen, that it will happen, is not enough. Mm-hmm. However, giving an example from a client, for example, I asked this client, when you're where you want to be, this place that you're saying, I want to be at impacting this many people's lives, and I want to be at this level of production in my business, I want to have this kind of staff, I want all of these things. And he's saying this from a really defeated place, a lower confidence place of, I'm so far from there. And so I just asked, once you're there, when you're there, how do you see yourself showing up? I said, confident, convicted, excited. I said, how do you see yourself engaging with your clients? I'll be energized and pouring over joy all the time. I said, no, how will you be engaged with your staff? I said, I'll be getting them on board, making sure they're in line with my vision, all these things. And I said, and if you acted that way now, how much closer to your vision would you be? That's what it's really about, is seeing yourself as that person that you want to be in the future now, and acting in alignment with that vision that you have. Because that brings in alignment and brings in clarity for how to get even closer to that vision, that dream, that desire that you have. Keeps it front of mind, and it aligns your person with your vision. I hope I explained that well.
That's beautiful. That's great. So let's talk about where people are now, the small business owners that you're running into and the clients that you're running into. With the disruption, how are they doing on showing up and acting in the way that they want to do now so they become the person that they want to be? Are they hanging in there? Are they slacking off in general? Where are they?
Well, I have to say this is my first pandemic, period, unless as a coach.
It's okay. It's first for a lot of us, so okay.
So I wasn't sure what to expect. And the irony is the clients that I was expecting to come to answer the phone and be panicked, chaotic, a little nervous, they were, more of those were, I'm good. Like, I'm actually excited. I feel pretty positive right now. And then the ones that are usually pretty even keel, consistent and showing up positively, they're like, my world is on fire. I'm going crazy. All these things. About a month later, it flipped again. The thing is, based on your personality, as well as some life experiences, you may show up or act differently. So there's a lot of trends that have come up with this, but there's also a lot of differences in how people react and respond. Part of that is because some people, when chaos happens or change happens, they get excited because they are energized by change. They want to tackle a problem or engage fully. Others who love structure and continuity, they know what to expect. When that happens, their world is kind of falling apart. It takes a little bit of time to adapt. A month later, those who love change and are excited to tackle this, things start to level out. And then the opposite is things, they get a little bit more bored. And those who are more used to consistency, they're getting their consistency back and a little bit more calm. So it's been really interesting to see how different personality types respond in these different situations. But I would say overall, the majority of the rule is those who see this as an opportunity, whether they're struggling or they're excited, taking time to see the opportunity to either build their business or simply plant seeds and engage with their clients for future business. I think it's a lot of times everyone had to take the time to calm their mind, which is not something that we actively generally do. When you do, your mind is an amazing problem-solving machine if you just allow it to do its job.
So it's not unusual that I felt one way and it changed a little bit as we went through this. Like, because when it first happened, I'm like, okay, I'm good. And then I got down for a while and now I'm feeling better. Like, I've been up and down thinking, I'm a mess, but you're saying that happens to a lot of different folks. They'll change how they deal with a situation when it goes for longer than a short period of time. Let me follow up on that question, what you were just saying. Talk to us about the voice in our head. Because there's the voice in our head that's telling us, you've got people in brand crafted and you should be the positive one and you should tell everyone it's going to be great. And fortunately, I was that guy. I did feel that way, but I did feel that voice in my head that I had to be that guy. Tell us about the voice in our head and how it relates to us doing our job well.
So I'll answer that question, but I do want to take just a moment to say that, Pat, being in a position of leadership, you are in a place where you told yourself, I have to show up. And that is a challenge, but it's also a gift. For a lot of people, if they're not in a position of leadership where they have to show up, then they won't. So leadership is a challenge because you have to show up even when you don't want to, but it's also a gift because you have to show up when you don't want to. And we thank you for being that leader, Pat.
Thank you.
Now, back to your, could you repeat your question? Just make sure I answered accurately.
I'm just curious about that jerk in my head, the voice in my head that,
Yes.
that tries to sometimes hold me back as I'm trying to move my small business forward. How do you tame that person?
Yell at it.
Oh, come on now. Now, come on. It can't be that easy.
It's not that easy.
Okay.
But it's a good starting point, actually. Now, when I say that, your strategy may differ, but honestly, the best way is to stop the voice. And I'm not saying that you just say stop. It's not that simple. What I'm saying is you catch it in the moment. You acknowledge the voice when it's happening, and you say stop. So I'll share with you guys my story, and something I'll share in the future too, but it's a little embarrassing, and so I'm going to embarrass this moment, but tell you a little bit of my story. When I was in a state of mentally beating myself up constantly, to the point where I was working all the time, I was workaholic, and nothing was ever enough. My work was never good enough. I could never complete all my tasks. And I was constantly beating myself up. And I won't swear on here, so I'm not going to tell you all the things I was saying to myself. But I was beating myself up constantly. And all of a sudden, one moment, out of nowhere, completely subconsciously, I just went, do-a-dee-do-a-dee-do. Yes, thank you, Pat, for that reaction. Exactly. And it was not conscious. It was out of nowhere. And I started laughing at myself. And after I took some time to calm down, stop laughing, I realized my mind was saying, enough. I can't handle this anymore. If you continue down this road, I'm going to shut down on you. And I realized that was a self-survival mechanism. So for the next year, whenever I caught myself, that voice beating myself up, I just went, do-a-dee-do-a-dee-do, no matter where I was, even if I embarrassed myself, because it was a catch to me of, okay, Ariel, stop. This is no longer serving you. This is beating you down. And your mind has said, I can't take it anymore. Yeah. So that was my way to stop. And so I talked to people about their trigger or their word or whatever it may be, to say, okay, I caught that this pattern is happening, and I'm saying, stop, this is not serving me. But then you replace it with a new pattern. Mine personally that year was progress, not perfection. So I would say, do, and then I would say, progress, not perfection. My focus is on progress, not on trying to be perfect. So for someone else, it might be momentum. For someone else, it might be purpose. For someone else, whatever your word is, to say, nope, I'm leaving that pattern behind right now, and I'm moving forward with this one. And you do it again and again and again. And eventually that voice gets quieter and less powerful.
Is it the second part of that where people fail? Someone says, the voice in their head, I'm going to go on a diet, I'm going to work out more, I'm going to call more clients, and then you don't, because you're not adding the affirmation that follows it. You work on the restrictive part, but not the follow through. Is that a missing link when people try and make behavior change?
Yeah, I think very much so. And as you said that, and a metaphor kind of came to my head, where it's kind of like you're putting the dam up and you're saying, nope, stop, but then you're not giving a different flow.
Right.
You're not giving an outlet or a new pattern, a new purpose, a new flow for those thoughts. So they just keep coming without redirecting. That's
something
really
I've been waiting to ask you about, because I wanted to talk to you about the voice in my head, because it's bad. And this isn't like some self-therapy session. This is not what this is. But we all have that voice in our head. That voice in your head always is negative, or at least it seems to be negative quite a bit. But sometimes the voice in your head can be really positive. Is it dangerous to be overly positive with the voice in your head when you're running your own business?
I love this question. So I would like to share a graphic to help explain this, because when I went through this, it really helped me to kind of put the words in the understanding, because we oftentimes think one or the other, positive or negative. And this graphic helps to show that it's really a paradox.
Okay.
Now, I would love to show someone else's, because that would be less vulnerable, but that would not be ethical. So I'll show mine. This is it's called the Harrison assessment. And there's a lot of different things that it analyzes with your traits. But I took this a few years ago, and this really helped me understand the balance. So the voice that might be encouraging you to be better, that would be the self-improvement. We'll call it the self-improvement voice. So you may have a low self-improvement, which would mean I don't really need to improve. Or you may have a high self-improvement, which means I really want to improve. The other aspect of it is self-acceptance. You may have low self-acceptance, which would mean that I don't like who I am. I don't like how I show up. I'm not comfortable with myself as I am. High self-acceptance would be I'm okay as I am. When you have both, the healthy self-esteem category, it's I'm okay as I am, and I have a lot of room to grow, and I'm excited to grow. So to answer your question, hopefully, if you have low self-acceptance and high self-improvement, like I really want to improve, but I am not okay with myself as I am, that results in you being self-critical. And when you're self-critical, then you're constantly beating yourself up, and it's never enough. You're never okay as you are. And that's when that voice is really, really damaging. If you are high self-acceptance and low self-improvement, that is when you have a problem with probably not taking feedback. You don't have a strong desire to improve. and you need to be listening to the voice of opportunity for improvement a little bit more. Does that help to explain your question? Awesome.
So if we talk with Dave, this is where we are right now. If we spend some time with Dave and we really drill down on who we are and what we should be doing with our life, and now we spend some time with you, we understand how we think about what we do and how we can do whatever we choose to do better. I mean, you two together, it's a killer combo. And what we're talking about right now is amazing. So thank you for sharing what you are. What are some mental best practices that we can all take advantage of to be better at running a small business, or just being happier, better adjusted people? Like, what's a day-to-day best practice, or what do you recommend?
Well, I would recommend finding your word or your kind of your metaphorical dam to say, nope, stop that voice. That's not serving me right now. And then find what you want to replace it. And that replacement may be something in alignment with your vision, your purpose, your drive, your why, or even your mantra. Keep that in mind. And that is something that will pay off in the long run as you keep doing it more and more and more. Make it a practice. The other things I would say as far as practice, really important and undervalued, is spending time to let your thoughts flow. So oftentimes we can beat ourselves up. This is one thing to be careful of with mindset. Don't beat yourself up for the thoughts that come up, especially with that negative voice. Don't beat yourself up for having that negative voice. We all do. Don't beat yourself up for the thoughts that come. They will come. However, you cannot control the thoughts come and go, but you can control which ones you let flow. I just came up with that like yesterday. Someone used it.
Need a t-shirt.
But with that, it's take that intentional time, think time, to focus on which thoughts you want to let flow. For some, this is meditation. For some, it might be process time, think time, call it whatever you want for whatever you like. But that's about taking intentional time to start controlling your thoughts by focusing on which ones you're going to let flow.
Is journaling one way to do that, where you just dump into a journal?
Absolutely.
So for what it's worth, I don't like physically writing. It drives me crazy. I like talking for obvious reasons. And I know that I'm a dinosaur for saying this, but I just yesterday tested inside Microsoft Word, the dictation function inside Microsoft Word. It's unbelievable. Like, it works better than any dictation I've ever used. And I wrote like an entire chapter of a new class coming out soon in like 30 minutes because I could just talk it out rather than type it out. So if you have not tried dictation inside Word, it might be a good place to help your thoughts get out, or write something if it's really creatively based.
Love that.
If you have any questions for Ariel, drop them in because we're almost out of time, because we're going to move on to some new stuff. Tell us about a success story, because I asked Dave about that too. Someone, and you don't have to out them, but someone that you worked with and their story changed, their mindset changed, and they took off. Can you share a success story?
Sure, I'd love to. The success story that I like to share probably the most is my first client. So my first client, I laugh because he became my first client because he challenged me. So if you want to see me show up, challenge me. He said, we started talking about coaching. And he said, I don't know if I believe that really works. I said, oh, okay, let's give it a shot. Right there in front of about 5 people. And so I started going through the process, and he said, okay, whoa. You're getting into the feels here a little bit. Let's stop this, but here, take my card, give me a call. From then on, we started coaching together. Long story short, he became my first coaching client. He said he wanted to coach with me. And after a year of coaching together, he had a 78% increase in production in his business. And he said that his relationships had improved with his clients and with his family and with his staff because of the breakthroughs that we made. That was a powerful reason for why I decided to go do this full time. And then there's been others since that have been really amazing. One, he was about to drop out of his business, really struggling, and now he's in the top tier in his region. So honestly, it doesn't always happen that way, of course. For some it's smaller things, but sometimes there's one limiting belief that's really holding you back. I certainly had mine. And when you just unlock that, it's kind of like the dam breaks and the water flows and amazing things happen sometimes.
Well, can you think of training that's more effective than this? Most people think training for your business is learning how to use QuickBooks or learning how to use Office or something. But if you were brave enough to sit down and really listen to what your head is saying, man, I'm sure those results would be bananas. We have folks that are asking for your contact information inside the chat. So please drop that in there when you're done. And you also have a mailing list. Tell us what's on your mailing list.
So I want to give a shout out to Jayme Dement with Vox Direct, who has helped me set up some text message marketing that I'm really, really excited about. So I have 3 things, and I'll put them in the chat for anyone. But if you text 888-523-2494, again, I'll put that in the text. Text BC Mindset, can set up a free coaching call with me. I'm offering free coaching call, which is valued at $350, offering that up for free to BC members here. Also, text MP3 to get notified when my new podcast drops. Thank you, LZ, amazing with Enterprise Now. And third, hold on, I had 3. BC Mindset, free, and Mindset. Text Mindset, and you'll get invited to my May Mindset sessions, which are free and open to talk about better understanding how your mind works and how to utilize that information to take control of your mindset.
That's great. Well, I was not wrong, right? I was not wrong. Ariel Kopac, Harness Your Hindrance Coaching. Thank you so much for the time and for making us think differently. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Pat.
So, okay, we've got 2 speakers down. We've got 3 speakers to go, and we've covered like some amazing, right, mind-blowing experiences. But we're going to shift now, and we're going to get a little bit more tactical. So we're going to bring on the Time Lord. And I keep on calling her the Time Lord. Taren, are you okay if I call you the Time Lord? Because I think it's just a fun...
Totally fine with it. I actually kind of love it. I ordered a t-shirt.
Did you really?
Not yet, but I am going to.
Taren Sartler from TikTok. It's all about time. So we've talked about what you should be doing with your life. We're talking about how you do what you're doing with your life. But now we're moving on to when do you do what you have to do with your life? When we're talking about time management. This is your baby. How are you and your clients adapting to the new normal?
What's really interesting about that question, Pat, is that there wasn't much adapting that had to be done. It's systems and processes in place, business as usual, just in a different environment.
So let's talk about the concept of time. How do people think about it? If you're a small business owner, what kind of habits and mindsets do you run into when people think about their day?
Honestly, I don't think they're thinking about their day, right? And that's really the biggest struggle, is being on purpose with your time, no matter what you're doing, finding ways to be more efficient and effective, making sure that your calendar is set up in a way that you're running your business in the way that you really, it's really interesting when you were talking about, how do we say it? Ikigai. Yeah. So you made a comment earlier about how you want to make sure that you show up and do what it is that you want to be doing every day and all day. And people go into business or into sales and they start doing everything else, all the little things, all of the busy tasks, because they're not thinking about their day or being on purpose with it. And so really to start thinking about it more is what we're all going to need right now. And we have some tools and tricks we can talk about tonight to start doing that.
But it's gotten kind of creepy. Again, back to when we talk with Dave, if you really get down to what you're supposed to be doing with your life, and you get to Ariel and you talk about what's stopping you from doing that thing, now that all of the external excuses have pretty much been taken out, I don't have to worry about the commute. I don't have to see the boss every Tuesday at 10. All of those excuses are gone, and now you have all day to plan. Have you learned anything from watching your clients react?
Quite a bit, not just my clients, myself. So I found out I'm a reflect and renew kind of person. So I always revisit my calendar, what's working, what's not working. And I realized after the first several weeks of quarantine time, the first 4 weeks, I saved 17 and a half hours in drive time.
Wow.
17 and a half hours. What I also found was that I was spending a lot more time on social media. Good, better, and different. I was engaging more, but I stopped being as on purpose with my time in those gaps, those drive time gaps that were normally scheduled in. And so again, reflect and renew what's working, what's not working, being on purpose.
It's easy for us, though, to think, oh, we should be exploding with productivity, but isn't there a part of us that's just mourning right now, that we're just adjusting to the life that we don't have anymore?
Hands down. I think all of the other speakers spoke on this already tonight, and truly people are parenting. They're homeschooling, they're working from home in an environment that's completely different from what they're used to working in, and people shut down. Ariel mentioned it, and she said, Pat, you're a leader, you chose to show up. And there's a very different mindset between a leader and that employee mindset. When I work with my clients and their teams, we're often talking about how they need to engage with their teams working remotely daily, if not a couple of times a day, because they won't show up on purpose. So even though we have this gift of time, this silver lining of being able to maybe step back and have more hours and work on our business as well as in it, if you don't really truly understand the tasks you're supposed to have at hand, what your priorities are, what your non-negotiables are, and when you need to start and shut off every day, you're not really going to get anything done. And fight or flight, the easiest thing is to shut down.
And hasn't that been tough? I don't know if it's been tough for you. It's been really tough for me to have a start and an end time.
Yes. Yeah. The biggest thing I can say there is stick to a routine. I think that's the biggest struggle people have been having is we don't have to put pants on in the morning, right? Everyone just sees us from the waist up. It can be yoga pants or sweatpants or right. But you don't have to fully prepare. And unless you have a client meeting that's Zoom, you're not going into an office, so people aren't seeing you. Go to bed when you would normally go to bed. Put the kids to bed. School is still in session, just in a different environment, right? Wake up when you normally would. Create those bookends to your day and make sure that you're sticking to them. And if you started your day at 8 and ended it at 5 in the office, started at 8 and ended at 5 now. I talked to my consultants, real estate agents, financial advisors, clients that have no set hours even before this, right? They didn't know how to shut off. We look at things like daily non-negotiable tracking plans, point systems. If you get so many points that are revenue producing activities and you hit all those points in the day and it's 1:00, you can feel totally happy and not guilty at all shutting down for the rest of the day, right? It's just a mindset and a discipline. Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of what you do is about mindset, and you're such a great teacher. Do you have anything prepared or anything you want to make sure that you share with us tonight? Because I have a bunch of questions that might get us off track, but I know that you always come to a speech like this and you've got something to share. So what do you want to make sure that we learn from you tonight? Because you have so much you can give.
So other than sticking to a routine, the other thing I would say, the biggest discipline or the biggest time eaters most people are dealing with right now are social media, television. There was actually an interview with Steve Jobs when he first introduced the iPad, asking how his then 12-year-old child liked the iPad. His response was, he's never used it, right? So having the discipline to shut off the screen time, turn your indicators off, your notifications off. Jennifer can tell you how to do it in, Outlook or whatever, right? How do you shut your email off and still work in your calendar? And then start tracking the amount of time that you're spending watching television and on Facebook, because majority of people, it's usually about 50% of the time they're accounting for in their day. So they underestimate their screen time by about 50%. And that's where a lot of our time is going. And that's okay. There are people that have to be on there for engagement and prospecting and work. But when you're doing it, anybody who's worked with me or been to one of my workshops knows I say use a timer. I'm surprised it hasn't popped up in the comments yet. When you're going to work on social media, if it's for work during the work day on purpose, or you're making a series of calls or doing busy work, take a little kitchen timer, put it on your desk. It has to tick. Your brain will psychologically race against that clock. You'll be more productive. You'll get things done faster, and you'll continually hear that reminder. So if you travel off into that rabbit hole, that tick will come back to you and you'll go, oh, that's right, I'm supposed to be working on work, and it will redirect you back to what you're supposed to be doing.
Do you have Taren the Time Lord tickers yet? Did you get those made?
No, I actually did order them.
Did you?
Yes, I did order them. Yep, branded, logos on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will get them out to you. I also have, so I'm an Android user. Mm-hmm. There's an app on my phone. were more technologically savvy. It's literally just Kitchen Timer Plus.
Yep.
And it ticks.
Oh my gosh.
And it sits on my desk with me. And then when it's done, if I could get it to do it, it will give you a big, no, it won't. I'm not going to play with it.
Yeah. Another thing that came to mind is, isn't it interesting when we start time blocking and seeing where our time is going? Some of the places where we spend the most of our time are the places that we will openly acknowledge are not good for us, are not healthy. Is it good to watch 5 hours of TV every night? No.
No.
I consider that relaxation, even though it's probably damaging to me emotionally and physically. It's what is going on?
Especially the news, right? I don't know. Talk to Ariel about that.
Yeah.
Right. And you need something. You need self-care. You need some mind-numbing activities. We have to be able to shut down and unplug. But so I call this my Bliss List. I encourage everybody to, words you haven't heard before, right?
New.
My Bliss List. So it's my top 10 grounding activities. What can I do in 10 minutes or less that will bring me back to me, right?
Yep.
So for me, it's listening to music, floating on the boat, being at a beach, hanging out with, I love to be social. I'm you, Pat. I'd rather talk than write. I'm energy driven. My energy is driven by people. It's hanging out with my puppies, all of these things. And I have my list of 10 things where if I need a little bit of self-care throughout the day, that's where I go. And those of you that know me well, I don't watch television. NFL football, that's about it. And I read a lot. It's just making sure that I stick to my Bliss List.
So there are strategies that you teach, the Bliss List, the way people think about how they spend their time. Is that what they get when they work with you? Or how does someone learn? What does that look like when someone works with you?
So oftentimes the initial consultation is really a deep dive into their calendar and it's prioritizing. It's a brain dump. Pat, I think you did this recently on one of your brand crafted rally conversations. You said, write down everything you do in a day, a week, a month, a year, right? So we brain dump. And then we start to figure out what your priorities are and what your tasks are that you truly need to be handling personally and professionally to make your world run. Then what can we delegate, delete, and what do we have to do? And for most business owners, it's really only 3 or 4 tasks within their business they should be doing and focusing on at any given time. Automate, delegate everything else, or get rid of it.
And that's the most empowering thing of all. Before we let you go, if anyone has a question for Taren, drop it in the chat and we'll get to it before we're done. What haven't we covered when it comes to using time to get the most out of every day? Is there anything else that you want to make sure that we get in?
Yes. So I'm gonna call it green time. It's a plan B activity. So in my calendar, and you can use any color you want, all of my revenue producing activities are green time. I can look for weeks ahead and know that I'm making money by the amount of green appointments on my calendar, right? But people reschedule. They cancel last minute. They no-show, right? These things happen. I have a list of plan B items that I only swap green time for green time, right? So if you have a meeting, you're supposed to be in a meeting with a client. My non-negotiable is if somebody reschedules, cancels last minute, no shows, I dial until I schedule 2 new appointments.
Every time.
That's every time. I have a list of people that I carry with me. So no matter where I am, I can sit in the car, I can sit at a picnic table at a park, I can stay in the office, and I dial until I find 2 new appointments set.
Wow.
Trade revenue time for revenue time.
That's great. And I have a feeling, well, I know that we're just scratching the surface, of the things that you have to teach us. So thank you so much. I want a Time Lord
Happy to
tomato
be here.
when they come in, the tomato timer.
All yours.
We have a question. Hold on. Wait, we got a question here.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. How do you recommend solopreneurs delegate? Virtual assistants, contractors? What do you have in mind?
All of the above, specific softwares. And I don't recommend usually any specific software unless there's a glaring gap in your practice. Usually it's what tools do you already have and how do we use those better? But if there are specific things, if you're a coach or a dentist or whatever that is, why are you doing your own bookkeeping? Right? So little trade-offs, you'll actually if it costs you, I don't know the numbers, $400 an hour to work with a bookkeeper. Maybe I'm overcharging or undercharging them. Sorry, guys. But if it costs you that much, and you think about the number of hours you spend adding your receipts, putting them into a spreadsheet, working with QuickBooks, and what your billable hour is, if you can find revenue producing activities to throw into that same hour, you will make more money by delegating it.
Yeah, that's great. One more question inside the chat. Mailing list, newsletter, events. Tell us how we learn more.
All of it. So I do have a mailing list. You can go to my website. I'll put it in the chat and jump on there. You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, social media, Instagram. And there's also, when you're on those lists, there are a series of events we have coming up. I have a Talk with Taren button, and you get 10 minutes to challenge to solve your biggest time challenge with me at any time. So yeah, head on out to the website and get on the lists. Happy to chat with all of you.
It's always great to talk with you. You teach us something every time you do. And
thanks for having me.
Of course, I want to give you a big time shout out and thank you for all of your support for Brand Crafted. You've been a champion of what we do here in connecting and introducing people. I just really appreciate your support. So thank you.
I love what you do, Pat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, get me a tomato timer. I want it. Thank you very much. All right, so now let's just take. I need a drink or something. Like, this has just been like really deep. Like, we've gone into some deep places. We've talked about how we make choices. Like, we're really inside our head. And I want to pivot a little bit. Wait, I said pivot. When you say pivot, we have to drink, right? Because that's the drinking word this evening. We're going to change and get out of our head, and we're going to get a little bit tactical now just to give ourselves a mental break. Because if we do another deep thought content idea right now, my left lobe might melt. So let's bring on someone who I think is just amazingly interesting. Jayme Radomski, she owns Top Shelf Home Organizing, and she's so much fun to talk with, and she can teach you how to organize literally anything. But when I thought about the Brand Crafted group, and I thought of one of the things that we all share trying to be productive on a computer. And I thought, I've never been to a talk where I've heard an organizer talk about organizing their digital life. Because if your computer is like my computer, it looks like Sanford and Son. I mean, it's bad. So Jayme Radomski, Top Shelf Home Organizing. Oh, look at this. Abby Miller for the win. Oh, you are a wonderful person. Thank you very much. We love you. Thank you, Abs. That's the advantage of having Abby right up there. So Jayme Radomski, Top Shelf Home Organizing. You're an organizational pro, but we want to talk about digital organizing tonight. How much time do you spend doing that? Is that something you talk about often?
Yes, I do it all the time, personally, professionally, and with my clients. It's not always what they hire me to do, but it will evolve into, oh, by the way, there's this and there's that, and I can't keep anything straight. So I just love that I'm talking about something very concrete after all of these feeling talks.
Right.
And after a couple of glasses of wine, right? And this is perfect right now for all of us entrepreneurs, business owners, when we're feeling like we don't know what to do right now. Like, what do we do with ourselves? Maybe we can't see our clients, or we're waiting for something to end. And you can organize your digital files. You can organize your files right now. All of those things you think about when you're really busy, like, oh, I need to get that organized. I need to do this. I need to do that. And right now really is the time that you can do that. And then you feel productive, like you've accomplished something in kind of this downtime.
It's not unusual, though, for people's computers to be messy, right? I don't remember ever being taught while being taught how to use a computer, how to keep a computer organized. Is that common to be a hot mess?
It is. And so I teach, some of you may or may not know this, but I've been teaching college students since 2005. And they're required to actually turn in like a physical binder of all their coursework. And their files need to represent that on their computer now that things are going more digital. So it's something that nobody ever really is taught unless you are trained to be an administrative assistant, or you just naturally have that way of organizing things. So no, most people and most professionals and most business owners are a mess.
Okay.
And you might, you start your business with an idea and it's just you and you know where everything is, but all of a sudden you need a virtual assistant. You have a couple independent contractors, you're sharing files with people, and you're spending a good portion of your day trying to find those files so that you can just share it with somebody so they can help you.
Absolutely. So a lot of time is wasted there. Stress is added. Let's get
Yeah.
real tactical. How should we think about keeping our computer organized? What's it like?
Okay. So anything you organize, anything. So digital files is what we're talking about, but this could be your underwear drawer. There's 5 steps. I always tell people there's 5 steps. You gather everything you have. Okay, and then you sort it into these categories. So your files, you're sorting. You might be sorting by client name, client number, contract. You're going to have these administrative files. You're going to have, your lease and all of those utilities and things like that. So you have all these piles, right? You sort them into these piles, and then you go through and you purge. Okay, so maybe I don't use this contractor anymore, or this relationship with a client doesn't exist anymore. So there's all these things you can remove. And the removal is a big thing, okay? And a lot of people hate that word purge, okay? So purge, it's like, no, I don't want to get rid of part of my life. But you do need to remove the stuff that doesn't apply anymore, the things that aren't making you money. And then you go ahead and you file them or you organize them, okay? So I get them organized. So in your digital files, if we're going backwards, you're going to have all this past documents, okay? So you just put them in their chronological order, right? We don't care about the really old stuff unless it's something administrative that we're going to have to reference someday. And then we label them. So with digital files, labeling is the key, because how we name our files is how we retrieve them. So if we give it some funny acronym or some funny abbreviation, we're not going to remember what. We're going to think, what in the heck was that? Or if you're trying to search in your Finder, you're not going to remember. And then remember, as you're growing, you're going to be adding people. So we're not going to know, if I BC, well, what is that? Well, that's brand crafted. My virtual assistant doesn't know that, right? When I'm asking for that brand crafted file from Pat Miller, well, I labeled it BC from PM, We have to think about how we're going to retrieve these, like a logical way to retrieve them. So that's where we come up with these file names.
Are you saying that I'm not in the VIP folder, Jayme? Is that what you're saying? It actually hurts a little bit. So tell us how we should name a file. Is there a certain mechanic that it should be this dot this dot this, or how do you do it?
Right. So there's 3 parts to a file name. Okay. So there's the subject. So is it an invoice? Is it a receipt? Is it a project name? Is it a project number? Right. Or is it a client name? Right. Okay, so we have these subjects to all of our file names. So we want to keep those consistent, and you decide a consistent way on how you do your business. So for me, because I have personal relationships with all my clients, I use a name. So I use their last name and their first name. Mm-hmm. Now, if you have a client that has lots of projects, you might have a contract number. So you're going back to that same client, but you have contract numbers. So that's the biggest part is the subject, I'll call it. And some people like to include a date in their name so that, okay, yes, this project was done on April 21st of 2020. Okay, even though there might be revisions, when was that project initiated, or what is that date? So if I think back, okay, I helped this client design a school building back in 2020. Okay, so then I know I can go into April of 2020 to retrieve that file. And then sometimes you include a code. And a code could be something that maybe indicates if this was a draft. I wrote this draft for a client, or this was a final copy, or maybe this was our final discussion. Maybe there's an author involved. So maybe I'm sharing a file with somebody, but it was initiated by my marketing contractor or something like that.
Right.
So there's 3 parts to the file name that you want to keep consistent as you name these files. Okay, that's not going to change or morph throughout, the year or depending on the client. There should always be those standard 3 things in your file name.
So for tonight, it would be, say, brandcrafted dot questions dot 42120, something like that.
Right.
And always
Right.
use
Exactly.
group name, what the document is and what the date is. So when I have my virtual assistant, they'll know what that file is when I send it to them.
Right. And so when I come back to you and I'm like, hey, Pat, that was a great discussion. Do you mind, where's a copy of that? And you can be like, oh yeah, that was April 21st, 2020. Here it is. Sent off. Otherwise, you might spend half a day. If I'm your client and you're like, oh shit, my number 1 client needs this file today because he's going to send it off to whatever. You don't want to spend a half a day or be up half of the night worried about this. You want to know, oh, that was April 21st. That was that broadcast we did. So
that's helpful about the naming convention, because that's something I've fluttered back and forth on. And how do I name something? And half of my files are named one way and half are a different way. So
right.
The group, the item, and the date, that makes total sense. What about folders and just keeping things organized as far as the rooms in your house on the computer?
Right. So let me just mention one thing. When you mentioned half your files were done this way, another half were done that way, and now we're looking back into the past. So when you decide to get your stuff organized, start from now. You know what you did in the past and you know what worked for you. Move forward, okay? When you have time, you can go back and resort that old stuff.
Brilliant.
Okay, otherwise you're going to spin your wheels thinking about what you did there when you really, let's just get it straight from here on out, okay? So the folders, which I like to call the root, I don't know if that's a technical term.
Root, R-O-O-T, root.
Yeah, the root, okay.
What do you mean by root?
So I don't know if that's a technical term,
but
when I think about root, I go way back. So I do 3 things in my life, okay? I teach, I run my business, and I have a family, a household. So those are my 3 roots, okay? So when you go onto my computer and my email, I'll tell you that I organize my email the same way. So all of these roots and these naming conventions, you go to my email folders and it is exactly like it is on my hard drive. It's exactly like it is on my box drive.
Okay.
So that when I'm like, oh my gosh, where was this? Who shared this with me? I at least know what it looks like so that I can go retrieve it. So I take these 3 areas of my life, okay? So like in my personal folders, I'm going to have investments, I'm going to have kids activities, I'm going to have mortgage, whatever you have personal, medical, all of those are here, okay? So I have these subfolders, and the same with my business, the same with teaching. And so let's just take, for example, teaching, because I teach many classes, I keep them all organized the same way. So I'll have, class 101 and I'll have class 201. You go into those folders and you will see lecture notes, you'll see assignments, you'll see lesson sheets, you'll see labs, you'll see quizzes, you'll see final exam. It's all the same. So if I need to pull up, assignment 3 from class 2300, I know right where to go. It's the same steps every time. No matter what class I need to go to, it's click, 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 and I'm there. So being consistent with how you name things across many platforms will help you save time.
Are you a believer in subfolders? So if the root is work, inside work is small step solutions, inside that is brand crafted.
Yes.
And inside
Yes.
there, are there a bunch of small folders, or do you believe in naming it consistently and using search to find what you're looking for?
Name it consistently and use search.
Don't put them in subfolders.
A limited number of subfolders. So keep it simple. So you're going to have, maybe 3 subfolders max. But you don't want to go subfolder. So you're, if you do go to the wrong spot, you have to go back 10 steps and then down 10 steps. So how you name things, where you store them, what the files are called, always keep it simple. The simplest thing that comes to your mind, okay? So 3 subfolders maximum. But yes, definitely subfolders, because in your personal file, you're going to have some categories, and in those categories, you're going to have a couple more categories. So in my business, I have clients, I have administrative, and I have independent contractors. So I know my independent contractors, I've got marketing, I have graphic design, I have accounting, and I have organizers. So if I need to look up Susan, her whatever tax documents I have on file, or her address, I know, right? I go top shelf home organizing, independent contractors, and there's Susan's folder. So there's 3 steps.
Yeah.
Okay. And that at least leaves it nice and clean, where I'm not just a list of independent contractors. Okay. There's a lot of Susans in the world. And in fact, I do have a couple Susan independent contractors, so at least I know, it's separated a little more.
I know we live in the digital age when this is a thing. When you go into someone's house and you're throwing out their kids' stuff, they get emotional and they get attached to it and they don't need it anymore.
Right.
The computers were no different there. We don't want to delete files. How do you coach people through the idea of that's an invoice from 2011, let it go? Like, how do you help people do that?
And the funny thing is, I think people hang on to the digital clutter a little more because it's not a piece of paper in their way. It's just digital. It's out there. Who cares? It's not cluttering up my home or my office. So that it is an additional challenge, and it takes a little more digging because people aren't as willing to open up their digital files. And a lot of that is that they are a hot mess. They're not keeping as much of a structure as they did 12 years ago when they literally had a filing cabinet. Now things have evolved to digital and they didn't get a grip on how it's organized. So it's a little messier. And they're not always aware what's in that file because maybe it's not named properly. They're not sure what it is. And so they just want to protect it. Okay, so it's a lot more discovery and it's a lot more digging to get into that.
Yeah.
I will say that when somebody does dig that deep, it is very freeing for them to know, like, okay, what I have now is only what I need. I got rid of that stuff, even though they weren't quite aware of what was there. It's this fog in the background that's kind of like creeping in, when you're searching for a file and you see all this excess, and you don't want to look into it, it's there.
Yeah.
It's this additional stress, and it does take a toll.
So we're almost out of time because I know you could teach this for like hours on end because we're terrible at this particular issue of keeping people organized digitally. If you have a question for Jayme, drop it in the chat and I'll try and get it in. What else do we get wrong? Is there anything else we haven't talked about when it comes to digital organization you want to make sure we hear?
So here's the common mistakes. I made a little list.
Okay. Of course you made a list. I'm sure it's color-coded and beautiful. Tell us about your list.
I know. And I have a hard time just talking off the top of my head because I'm so used to my list. I'm an engineer. Did I mention that? I come from an engineering background. So when you save files directly to your desktop and you rely on your desktop to find your files, okay? So what you want to do is you want to save them to your hard drive or your cloud account, which is the new thing, right? We're all still stuck on our hard drives, but you save them to your file conventions, okay? So whatever you've set up, and just put a shortcut on your desktop, okay? So that if that shortcut disappears, you're fine, you know where to go in your files. So don't save to your desktop anymore. Overcomplicating and overthinking where your files get saved and how to name them, okay? So there's a lot of creative people in the crowd tonight, which is, why we do what we do, because we're creative and we want to follow our hearts. Files and file folders, keep it simple, okay? If it's your utility bill, it is your utility bill. We don't need to know that, it's We Energies, before We Energies was called We Energies, Wisconsin Energy Company or whatever, just keep it simple. Okay. Don't use any confusing abbreviations or acronyms. I mentioned that in the first part. If you've got if you've got a nickname for Pat, right? Keep the file on Pat, something that anybody else will understand.
Yeah.
Be consistent across all file and folder names. So consider your Google Drive, your hard drive, your Box account, your iCloud account, your Dropbox, and your email. Okay, so however you name things, keep it simple. So your email, when you set up your file folder system, your email can be the same. Okay, so you will have your utility folder in your email, so that's where your utility emails will go into. Let's see. And then pick a method to back up your files. So we all know we need to back up because computers are so disposable these days. Don't rely on your hard drives. You want to have a backup method. So, back in the day, we were backing up to external hard drives. We were using jump drives. Now there's cloud-based applications where we can literally just save our file to the cloud, which is super easy. You don't even have to think about it. And I think that's great. Don't rely 100% on the cloud. You probably want to keep, some stuff on your hard drive or somewhere else so that you have 2 spaces. So always have 2 places you're saving your stuff. And then keep your personal information in mind. So when you are saving files that maybe have passwords or social security numbers, because personally I've scanned in all of our birth certificates, our social security cards. Those are not on the cloud. Okay, I put those on an external hard drive or a jump drive. They're backed up there and they go in my safe because honestly, I don't know what's going on in the cloud. I don't want to know, but I know that I can't keep certain information out there. It's like my files on my independent contractors never go to the cloud. They are locked up in my safe on a jump drive. So be aware of the files you need to back up and where you're backing them up. I mean, most stuff is safe out on the cloud, but just be aware where you're putting the stuff and have 2 ways of saving your files so that if things go down, and as an entrepreneur, your computer goes down, you call your consultant, but we don't have in-house IT that are, ready to save us.
Yeah.
And every moment, every day is money. If you've got meetings with clients and you can't find files because your hard drive crashed, you know how your client feels about your business.
Yeah, right.
That moment when they've reserved time to meet with you and now their time is gone because your hard drive crashed. So
well, those are great tips. And you don't just do digital organizing, top shelf home organizing as well. If someone wants to work with you, how do they do it?
So you can call, text, message, however you want to do it. We reserve. There's a reservation page on my website. You can reserve a session. Phone consultations are always free. I am Top Shelf Home Organizing. That's where I started, and I have spent the last couple of years working with entrepreneurs and businesses. So I'm always happy to help busy professionals get organized as well.
Well, thank you for sharing all the genius thoughts. I really love the stuff that you shared. And I do want to embarrass you just for a moment. When Jayme and I were working together at the end of 2019, she was terrified to be on camera. And we are now doing video on Facebook. She's doing a weekly organizing tip on her Facebook page, which are incredible tips on folding and cleaning out and doing everything you need to do to stay organized in your home. But you were terrified to be on camera. And look at you tonight. You're crushing it. You did a great job.
The day that I met with you and then Abby took my pictures, and that all happened within the first 3 hours of the morning. I met my friend for lunch and drank a couple old fashions, went home and took this glorious nap, waking up to think, oh crap, I just missed my kid's therapist appointment. And I am so on top of stuff, but between you and Abby, you just made my brain like,
well, Abby and I can be terrible influences. We know that.
Yeah, but it's great. It's great. And thank you for pushing me.
Oh my gosh, you were great tonight. Thank you so much, Jayme Radomski from Top Shelf Home Organizing, helping us get more organized when it comes to our digital files. Please drop your contact information in the chat. That would be great. All right. So I'm trying to make sure that we're done by 8:30 like I promised, but the genius is so massive, I can only squeeze it in. So we still got time to talk to one more incredible professional, and Allison Orlovsky is going to help us become better parts of our personal network. She does For the Love of You coaching. And Allison, I think this is kind of interesting to have this chat because normally you're helping people in their relationships to get more out of their personal relationships. But I want to talk about networking and what it takes to be a good member of a professional network. So in the biggest picture, what does that mean to you to be a good member of a professional network?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think the big thing is one of the biggest things is to be intentional. When you start networking with people, like, we're not there to meet friends. Friendships will develop, but just like you go to work and you start a new job, you don't go to that new place to make friends. That's not the intention of it. The intention is to add value and to learn something. So when you are, whether it's a bigger chamber event or it's your one-on-one conversation with someone, to really be intentional with what you want to learn, the questions you have, how you think you might be able to partner with someone, collaborate, share resources. I quite honestly, I used to go and just like, I don't want to ask for anything. I don't want to put expectations out there. And it was very, and I'd walk away and then I'd be like, well, what did I just do that for? Like, I didn't necessarily get out of it. And I felt like I didn't offer anything. So when you show up with intention, even if the intention is, hey, I'm not quite sure how we can help each other. I just want to grow my network right now because we're all at different stages. That's okay, because here's the thing, giving and receiving is an ecosystem. You can't do one without the other. And everyone, like, you love to give, like, we want to help. Like, we're entrepreneurs, like, we need each other. We cannot do this by ourselves, small business owners. So it's really, I think, we can always talk about the questions and the icebreakers, but it's the intention that you show up with that I think is the most powerful thing. Yeah.
It's interesting because I think there's some objective shaming that so many people think networking is just about giving. I'm going to give. It's great to give. Be a giver. But it's okay to have objectives and look for something out of a business relationship, right?
Absolutely. You don't ask, you don't get. And I am learning that more. I heard that in my corporate career as I was climbing the ladder, but particularly, within, again, many of us are small business owners, solopreneurs, that we need those relationships, and we don't know what we don't know. We don't know the resources. We can't do it successfully, quickly, by ourselves. And so I'm going to totally plug a book for no reason other than I think it's an amazing book, and it's called The Go-Giver. It is a fun read. It's a parable. It's not heavy or really self-helpy. It's truly in a story. But this book helped me understand that, and I said this earlier, that giving and receiving is an ecosystem. And practice receiving. And the hard part of that is sometimes asking for what you want and what you need. But think how good it is when you can refer someone, when you connect someone, how good that makes you feel when that person asks you for that thing. And it may not be a one-on-one, trade in that moment, but when you're networking, you create a reputation. So if somebody knows that you're a giver in general, when you show up to ask, they're going to be like, yeah, Allison's great. David's great, Ariel's great, Jayme's great, Taren's great, everybody, I absolutely want to help you because you've already, created within your network a great reputation of giving at that point in time.
Let's go deeper on that. Let's go deeper on that. So we've all been at the networking event and it's like, oh, here they come. Right. Turn, walk away. I got to go to the bathroom, whatever. Like, what are some of the best practices to make sure you're not that guy? Like inside your professional network, because you mentioned some of the good things of giving and receiving, that makes sense. But what else, as far as behaviors are concerned, to make sure you're looked upon favorably inside the network?
Right. I think something that was super powerful for me that has impacted me in every relationship is this idea of responsibility. And that you're 100% responsible for your actions and your behaviors. And so rather than, just when you're personally responsible and if things don't go the way that you want them to, I know we're kind of talking about networking, and I'm going to shift a little bit because every relationship's great till it's not. So something happens, and as small business owners, we collaborate a lot, we partner a lot with people, and we may not know them quite as well, or, something we don't, so let me back up first. Clear expectations. So one thing is making sure that as we work with people that we really communicate clearly and have we share our expectations so that, when we, sorry, I'm just trying to gather my thoughts. Clear expectations so that when we can ask questions so that we know we're on the same page. So that, that helps prevent some of the oopses and the I thought you said, and I thought we were going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But when it doesn't go the way that you think it's going to, whatever that thing may be, the workshop, the project, the event, is really taking ownership and saying, okay, so it didn't go the way that I thought it would. This impacts me. So what am I going to do about it? Rather than, even if someone else is to blame, your response is your life, it's your outcome, it's your business. So how do you want to show up? And if you show up in a place of responsibility and owning that, you can avoid creating the reputation of being that guy that shows up at the networking event that is difficult to work with, is, difficult to communicate with, doesn't want to take ownership for anything, is always asking and taking rather than partnering and collaborating.
And it sounds obvious, but word gets around, right? I mean, it sounds so gossipy, but it's so true that, oh, that person, they did the thing. Like, it's no different than any other personal relationship, even though we're holding business cards.
Right.
So let's change the topic for a second. So we know we're going to go out and meet people. We're going to give value. There's an ecosystem. We got to be responsible. I get all that.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that happens all the time is competitors. Should you network with competitors? Is that cool? Or are you competing all the time? Or what do you think about when competitors are hanging around?
Competitors? What are competitors? I don't have any competitors.
Well, you don't have any competitors, but
But surely it's a mindset. It's a mindset because when you believe that there is enough for everyone, and this is a choice, you can choose to believe this or not.
Sure.
I choose to believe that there is enough out there for everyone. There are enough clients, there is enough revenue, there's enough work. I have specific gifts. I have a specific how I show up is different than other people. I have a different energy than other people. And so I will attract the people that I am a good fit to work with. And I will repel, might be a strong word, the people that don't. And
Right.
I want to work with clients that are easy, that are, have the flow and the fun and that are on the same wavelength as I am. That makes my, my job more fun. And then from their perspective, it's much, it's win-win. It's easy. So from that perspective, I don't see competition in from that perspective. I also, if somebody else is a coach, because of that, I want to collaborate with them. Like I want, to be able to share ideas and trust that, again, we're going to each create our own, our own clients are going to be drawn to us.
Mm-hmm.
And, the other thing is that if I'm, competition is also a lot about comparison. And I'm going to compare my, if you choose to participate in competition, a lot of it is comparison. How are they doing that? How much are they charging? And if I just trust my gut and I just trust that I am doing the best that I can do, then I can let go of the comparison and I can do things my way. And again, those will draw the clients to me that are meant to work with me. So that's my take.
Physically like restraining the positioning and branding coach in myself to not scream through the microphone that make yourself a market of one, so there is no competition. I mean, you only know one lighting lady, Angela Lingle. She's a lighting lady.
Mm-hmm.
She's made herself a market of one. So make yourself a market of one. You don't have any competitors, but I appreciate the feedback on that. We've only got time for a couple more questions. If you have something inside the Zoom chat, drop it there, and that way we can get it to Allison to help us become a better member of our professional network. Independent of the actual meetings, what are some tips and best practices that you recommend for people to keep up relationships inside the professional network?
I think don't add a big to-do list to do this, but it's really paying attention on social media. If somebody posts something, whether it's personal or professional, that piqued your interest or you found value in, to take a moment to comment on it. Likes are great, but actually, say something intentional. Drop someone an email. I just had someone last week that I'm working on a retreat with them and doing some collaboration. We haven't worked together before, but she just dropped me a note and said, "Hey, I just think you're great and what you're doing is incredible." And that was just like, it came out of nowhere. And it was just, this is where you can really start to build the relationship aspect, right? Relationships aren't a one-time, I'm going to have a half an hour conversation with you and then I'll call you when I need you. These are the little things. So, on whether you send an actual card on someone's birthday or, wish them a happy birthday with an actual, I hope you have a really great day and your day is full of all the people and things that you love the most. Just like those little things that take seconds, but just to continue to let them know that you care about them and that you see them. People just want to be seen.
It's so interesting. All of your advice has the theme of ownership and authenticity, which is the heart of what you do with interpersonal coaching, isn't it?
Yes.
So tell us about that. We've got you a little bit off topic talking about professional networking, but when you're not helping people with their professional networking on a Zoom chat on a Tuesday night, tell us about For the Love of You coaching and how you help people make their life better.
Yes, thank you. So it is, For Love of You came out of, I guess, Ikigai. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say if this is it, because my background was in corporate finance actually, and it was all about relationships. And I was the person where people would show up in my office and close the door and pour their heart out. And so I transitioned into actually executive and leadership coaching for a while, which was great. But then my passion, based on my background, my history, I've actually been divorced twice and went through just a lot of relationship stuff and finally created a great relationship. And so my passion, like it's great, it's amazing, right? And so all the things that I learned going through personal relationships. So that's where I really, from the Ikigai perspective, realized it's not my professional background where I can really help people. It's my, my personal experience and everything that I've learned along with my coach training to help people really, women in particular, but not exclusively, help them reignite, reconnect, reinvent the romantic relationships. And we do that. I want to work just with them so that they teach them the communication skills, how to empower themselves to create the relationship with their partner. That's really fulfilling for them as well as their partner, but how to find that balance. And so often it comes from who they are. I realized every time I leveled up my self-worth, my relationships leveled up. And when, my expectations of what I thought my partner was to be a little more realistic with, what I really needed them for versus what I could give myself. And so that's how I transitioned. And For Love of You coaching.
One more quick question. Do you help stop the I'm not worthy mindset when it comes to relationships?
Yes.
Okay.
That's really how we start first with, really looking at most people, men or women, we don't actually know what we want. And I think a couple of the other coaches alluded to that too. So it's stepping back and we do the exercise, like, David said, like imagine in your biggest, wildest dreams, what your best day looks like for yourself and then with your partner. And then we kind of dig into little ways where we can break that down, because sometimes when you dream so big, you're like, how do I even make that happen? So we break that down into little pieces. And then, yeah, so much often comes with, I think if I have a moment to share a really quick story, I realized with one of my marriages that my second one, that I've always struggled with my weight personally. And I always wanted him, I would, this is 10 or 15 years ago, but I'm so fat and I don't feel good about myself, and waiting for him to convince me that I was beautiful and that I was good enough. And I did it over and over and over again. And what I realized years later was my belief that I wasn't good enough actually was stronger than what his belief that I was. And I convinced him, I convinced him that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't beautiful enough, that my weight mattered. And so until I started to shift that in myself, that wasn't going to go anywhere. He would never be able to accomplish that. And that's not fair to put on someone. So just as a really personal example of, the value of self-worth in it. And that's the foundation of getting to that next level in your relationship.
That's great. Thank you for sharing your personal story.
Thank you for the extra time. I appreciate it.
No, it's great. And it's, like I say, having you on to talk about professional networking is a little bit outside of what you really do every day, but it's really helpful. And I wanted to have that kind of emotional look at it because these are relationships we're trying to keep up. And it's helpful to have an expert like you come on and help us. And I appreciate it. Allison Orlovsky, For the Love of You Coaching. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It's been a great night tonight. Thank you everyone for coming. So we've got a couple of announcements to make and some more information to share, but I do want to step back for a second and just think about this for a minute. How many times and how many other places do you spend multiple hours in a weeknight talking about your why and your how and your what, and you explore inside a professional setting how we get better at who we are and what we do? That's why I wanted to do tonight. And that's why I'm so grateful to the coaches that came on tonight and the experts, Dave Marlow, Ariel, Kopac, Taren, Sartler, Jayme, Radomski, Allison Orlovsky. Their insightful expertise is my mind is spinning right now. And I hope tonight you found something that made you go, that's a thing. I do that and I shouldn't. And that's what tonight was all about. Whether it's how you schedule your day to how you download your files. I mean, all this stuff matters. This is all friction inside your head that stops you from doing what you should be doing every day. So I'm just very grateful to the coaches for sharing and the guests, but I'm also grateful for you, the Brand Crafted group, and the others that came tonight, because this is amazing. So I want to thank Serendipity Labs for sponsoring tonight, David Noel and Emily, who have been great supporters of the group. Thank you for that. We would be with you in your spot right now if it wasn't for the frickin' virus. So we're here on virtual. A few quick announcements about what's coming up next. The next thing that I've got cooking is I've got a brand new podcast that launches on Monday, the 27th. Oh my God, that's 5 days from now. I've got a new podcast launching. It's called Lift As We Climb. It's an interview-based podcast that's happening inside the eWomen Network. I'm a premier success coach for them. So I'm going to interview professional coaches, eWomen VIPs, and members from all around the globe, literally the globe, with their success secrets and tips and tricks to help you run your business better. So if you liked the kind of content that we had tonight, liftasweclimbpodcast.com is the URL where it's there. The episode 0 is up across all the different platforms, so that way you can subscribe on your RSS feed and you can get content kind of like tonight every single week. So I'm really excited about that. 2 other announcements, and these are kind of I don't know, they're not fully formed ideas. So permission to share something that's way less polished than I normally do. Okay, thanks. And I'm sure Ariel and Allison are yelling at me right now for even asking, but still, I'm going to do it. So I don't like to say, hey, I'm going to do a thing until it's fully formed and baked and ready for you. But I got 2 things that I'm working on that are not. And I'm looking for collaborators if you're interested. So here's the ask. The first one is I'm starting some new classes based on my business. And I've got one class that I'm collaborating with Sarah Schwab on right now, and I can't wait to launch it. It's basically my entire process put into class form. It's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks. I'll let you know about that. But that's not what I'm asking for collaboration on. I want you to look into your business and think about, is there something that you teach? Is there something that you wish you had out there as a product that you could offer to your customers in a class form? Because I've got, I think, a pretty unique way to put classes out there to the universe, and I don't want to announce that part of it. But if you've got a unique process or you got something you want to teach someone and you'd like to make a class, it's not going to cost you anything. In fact, it's going to be a revenue generator for you. Hello, Kerching. Get in touch with me via email. So that's just the first ask. I'm just letting you know. Here's the other ask. I am going the next step on building a community. Brand Crafted is great, and I love my Brand Crafted group for in-town local stuff that we do. I'm going to go and build an idea coach community, because what you're going to see from me in the next 2 weeks, I'm leaving small step solutions behind. I'm moving forward as Pat Miller, the idea coach, and I've got a whole new slew of branding, positioning, and products I'm going to put out there. And one of those things that's going to come out is a new community that you can participate in, where I bring everyone in this network one click closer together. So I'm looking for a couple of collaborators that might be able to beta test the community and help me develop it. And I'm not sure how I'll compensate you. I'm sure I'll find some groovy way. Maybe Abby will show up with a surprise beer. Maybe that's the way that we'll get compensated. I have no idea. But if you want to play with me and help build something that I think is going to be pretty cool, reach out to me via email, because I'm really excited about that. Okay, those are my 2 asks. Next thing for the Brand Crafted group. We are going to have another Brand Crafted night school. June 2nd is the target date. June 2nd. Now, that may move based on, I don't know, the pandemic, but June 2nd is the target date, and I'm going to keep it virtual for now. If there's a way we can be at Serendipity Labs, we'll do it, but at worst, it'll be this way. And the topic that I'm working on, and I'll be interested in your feedback or guest suggestions, is rebooting your business. Because by June 2nd, hopefully, we're going to be ready to rock. So I think best practices and aggressive reset to get our marketing on point, to get our promotions on point. June 2nd is the target date. So if you have guest suggestions, please hit me up with that. So I normally don't like to blow you up with a bunch of different ideas and requests, but I got some exciting things moving on. I'm really excited about Pat Miller, the idea coach, and your collaboration and support so far in my little business has meant everything to me. So thank you to the coaches for sharing tonight. Thank you to you for coming. Thank you to Serendipity Labs for being our sponsor. And don't forget the woman behind the curtain, Jennifer Buchholz, for being the executive producer and the host with the most. Yes, and the maracas. We love you. So what I normally do at the end of these things is I turn everything off and everybody gets kicked out. I'm going to end the show and say thank you tonight for coming to Brand Crafted Night School, You and Improve, sponsored by Serendipity Labs. Good night.